Hey, Wicked Deke here, taking a look at the 2020 NHL trade deadline. It's passed. Trades have been made. My thoughts and ramblings. Oh, my. So I have to say, I'm impressed by the NHL. There was more going on the trade deadline than I expected. I thought there's so many trades of fairly high quality players before the deadline over the last few weeks that it was going to be mighty quiet, but it wasn't. It wasn't. And there were some good trades. There were some strange trades. It's all the more ironic because probably the biggest trade chip out there, Kreider, re-signed with the Rangers, which personally I think is a good move. I still don't understand why they were all that fired to get rid of him. He fits into the style of play they want. He's producing like a madman. He was a guy I'd certainly like to have on one of the teams I follow, but nonetheless, I thought it was going to be pretty quiet, but it wasn't. So let's take a look at some of the ramblings. So you already know all the trades, so I'm not going to go through them. Just talk on some certain teams and things I thought were interesting and odd. So I'm a Kings fan, LA Kings fan. I know the horror. Forbert, the Forbot, traded to Calgary Flames for a fourth rounder and possibly a conditional third rounder. I was surprised by this. I know people had said that he might get traded, but I was just surprised because of his health. The guy missed the beginning of the season with a back injury. He's been out, up and down the lineup with back injuries and performance. Hasn't played that well, which is probably tied to the back injury. And he's being traded to Calgary. Now I can understand why Calgary wants defensemen because they're missing a lot of guys with injuries. But trading for a guy who has been injured seems kind of strange. Wouldn't you trade for somebody who he was going to be in the lineup every night? I mean, even if you just look at the Kings, they could have picked up somebody like Ryan or Hutton, both who are UFAs, and both are healthy. So it was kind of strange that they went that direction, but hey, more power to them. And then, of course, Trevor Lewis was not traded. And it tells you a lot about the NHL rumors you read before the trade deadline. There were people out there. 6 teams are looking at Trevor Lewis. Teams value his experience. He's won 2 cups. The Kings have won 2 cups. Lewis happened to be on the bench. I'm pretty sure they win those 2 cups without him. Let's put it that way. Decent guy. Don't have a problem with him. Nice guy. It's just he's 32. The Kings are rebuilding. Why? Why have him around? Why wasn't he traded back in the draft? Why wasn't he traded this time? He's going to be a UFA at the end of the year. And Rob Blake said the thing that most of us feared. Oh, yeah, there's a chance maybe we'll re-sign him in the offseason. God, no. God, no. But anyways, not exactly a big deal either way with the Kings. They had made their bigger trades earlier in the year. And sadly, Jeff Carter was not moved. When asked if there were any calls about him made to the Kings, Rob Blake said no. Which tells you a lot. And then we have the Canes, the Hurricanes. Canes kind of going all in, huh? Going out there, trying to pick up some good players. I was impressed by other trades, but I still have one major question. Why didn't they trade for a goalie? You think Reimer is a Stanley Cup winning goalie? Mrazek? Mrazek's so stupid that he, after Reimer got knocked out, he came racing out of the crease to go for that puck with Clifford, gets injured and leaves him in the Zamboni goaltender situation. Now, all of that was very funny in the way it played out and everything else. But seriously, what was Mrazek thinking? How could you do that? You knew the other goaltender's already out. What possibly could you have been thinking? Never been impressed with this guy. I know he can have a hot game or two, but really, anybody look and think these 2 guys are going to backstop the Canes to a Stanley Cup? I just don't see it. I don't understand. They could have gone out and gotten Lehner from Chicago. The guy is solid. Yeah, he's had problems with booze or whatever it is, and mental illness and these kinds of things. I feel sorry for this guy. He comes out, he admits to all this stuff. He's trying to turn his life around. He seems to be doing a good job of it. People are all patting him on the back, and then nobody will sign him to a contract. We'll give you a 1-year deal, but no, we're not going 3 years or 5 years. We know you were a Vezina finalist. We're still not going to commit to it. So I guess we won't hear any other players coming forth. Canes man, if you were going to improve your team, to me, that was the way to do it. I was very surprised. So the Canes, to me, are not a legit cup contender. They have their team outside of the net, I think, is, but in the net, man, there's got to be some bad goals. The Vegas Knights. So as a Kings fan, I loathe and hate the Vegas Knights, but I have to say the Golden Knights, they did a good job. You look at that team, and the problem was very clearly defense and goaltending, and they upgraded. Getting Alec Martinez in particular, very solid. Top four defender. He give you 22 minutes a night. Not going to score much, although he's been setting it on fire with the Vegas already. But he'll solidify that defensive core. And that's all they need. They don't need a great defense. They just need to be average with that forward group. They have a very, very strong forward group. And then the goaltending's been bad. Subban's been awful. And Marc-Andre Fleury, everybody thinks back to the Cup run and how great he was then. Well, he's not been that way this year. He's been really bad. I think he's got a .904 save percentage. Plus, he's had the off-ice issue of dealing with. I think his dad passed away. Mom, I think his dad. So that's got to suck. So bringing Lehner in, could really help. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Lehner eventually become the starter there, just because I think he's a better goalie than Marc-Andre Fleury at this point. But either way, the Knights went out and addressed a very specific problem, and I thought they did a good job with it. Which teams do I think didn't do a good job? It seemed kind of bizarre. The Avs. So as we all know, the Avs have a ton of cap space and a lot of assets to go out and make trades with, and they really didn't do much of anything that you would consider significant. And I imagine what probably happened is because they have all those injuries, other teams started cranking up the prices. So I can kind of see what the Avs are doing. The other thing is, even though the Avs have a bunch of cap space, they're not going to in a couple of years. They have got like a window of like 3 years before they have to start paying people. They're going to have to pay Cale and McKinnon. McKinnon is on just a sweet $6 million a year contract, and it expires in another couple of years. And at that point, I'm pretty sure he's not re-signing for $6 million a year. He's gonna want to maybe double that number. So they have to account for these kinds of things. So I give the Avs a pass. I think probably what they're hoping for mostly is just to have players come back from injuries and heal up, and then have a go at it. But I do think if that doesn't happen, if they don't get all those players back, then you have to look at them and think their hope of being a serious cup contender this year is probably taking a pretty big hit. And then the Bruins, kind of an odd situation, trading for Case, or Case, however you want to pronounce it. The kid's got talent, no doubt, and you can see it if you've watched him play in the 4 games he's played in his career. This guy is always injured, and maybe he just hated playing in Anaheim. Maybe he'll suddenly develop some toughness in Boston, but I wouldn't count on it. So the Bruins still have their one forward line carrying everything, and that's a problem in the playoffs. Now it's a hell of a line, don't get me wrong, but you get in the playoffs, and teams are pretty successful at limiting the effect of one line teams. And I don't really feel like this trade, solves their big problem. Now they got rid of Backus and giving them to the Ducks. So I think that obviously was a benefit to it. And maybe they weren't really looking at the trade as solving their scoring problem. It's just more of getting some salary cap relief. And if that's the case, fine. But with Chara, the immortal, he's 42 now. He'll be 43 next year, I think. Window's closing. Bergeron's 34, 35, getting in that range. Krejci's 33 or so. They're getting to the end of that window. And to me, I would have thought they would have gone all in this year and next year. And they didn't. So who knows? Getting big trades doesn't always make a big difference. Tampa and Uncle Louie, or as I call him, Unky Louie. There's just some weird trades. Tampa giving up a first for a defensive forward who's never scored more than 8 goals in a year. I get it. You're disappointed after what happened last year. But does it seem like Tampa's overreacting a bit to the whole Columbus situation here? A first rounder for Good Claw or Good Cray or Good Ma, whatever the hell his name is. Boy, that seems like a lot. Now, I mean, obviously the Avs first rounder or the Tampa first rounder would be low, 29, 30, somewhere in that range. But, jeez, that's a lot. Only to be undone by Unky Louis Peugeot, the French car manufacturer, also the player in Ottawa. Peugeot's been having a great year. No doubt. Nobody could say anything differently about him. He's only had a great year in his career once, and he's got a shooting percentage of like 18%, which he's never even remotely come close to in the past. And Islanders not only trade, a first, a second, I think another conditional second for him, then they give him a 5-year contract. There's something about paying for a player at their greatest value that usually isn't a good move, because you know what comes after the career year? The non-career years. When he goes back to scoring 12 goals a year. I think somebody needs to get a flashlight out and check Uncle Louie's eyes. Making matters even more questionable was he almost traded for Zach Parise. Yes, I know. I love Zach Parise. No, you loved Zach Parise about 5 years ago. Zach Parise is now, 35? And his contract with Minnesota does not end until 2025. Think about that. You're looking at a forward who's going to be 40. And Unky Louie was thinking of trading for him. That Unky Louie even considered it. It's a measure of insanity. We may need to have somebody appointed by a court to take care of Uncle Louie. What is he thinking? Parisi, oh man, that would have been a fireable offense. You didn't see anybody else in the league lining up to go after Zach. No, that's not to bash Zach, but he's literally 35. He's going, and he still has 5 years on his contract. That is insane. That is insane. I mean, he's almost at the level where it's time to develop a rash to his hockey equipment, or temporary blindness occasionally, something to get him on the long-term injured reserve. Absolutely bizarre. So I guess the Islanders are all in. I don't know. It's kind of a strange situation there. Dubas. So we all saw the game, and we all were laughing at the Leafs. I was one as well, posting a lot of nasty little comments. So they had the press conference today with Kyle Dubas, and he came out to talk to the media. I don't think Dubas is a very good GM. I think he treats his roster like an NHL fantasy team, and he's allocated his monetary assets in a horrible way that is going to forever hurt that team until those contracts expire. He gets fired, and somebody tries to fix it. But I will give this kid credit for coming out and speaking to the media. He didn't hold back. He took responsibility. He was honest about it, and more importantly, it was kind of funny. I mean, he came out to the podium and you looked at all the media in the room, and he made the hand signal like, all right, bring it on. But he answered honestly, and, so credit to him, even though I disagree with pretty much everything he's done. Full credit for coming out and manning up and, facing the media and taking, kind of the hiding, you're going to take, the questions, you're going to get. And he still did it. And there are a lot of GMs in this league who don't. To me, that's how you tell if somebody is a good management or owner person is, it's easy to be out there when everything's going well, but when things go bad, are you front and center or are you not? And you can usually tell a lot about an organization as to how that's handled. So credit to him. So after the trade deadline, does all of this make a big shift in your mind as to who the Cup favorites are or not? I will say from my perspective, the only shift it makes is that I think the Golden Knights are back to being a legitimate Cup contender. I really do. I think that going out and aggressively trying to solidify their defense, get it up to at least average, could make a huge difference for that team. They can score, they just can't defend. And, so the moves that they made on defense, I thought were well thought out, and definitely help them. Now, who knows who's going to win? That's the beauty of the NHL and Stanley Cup playoffs, is anybody can upset anybody. But when you look at all these teams, the Knights definitely improved themselves. I thought the Canes improved themselves, but again, I look at that goalie situation and I have doubts. So let me know below what you think. What you think about the trades? Who do you think you see the Series Cup contenders? Who helped themselves? Who didn't help themselves? It's Monday. Feel free to rant. Deke out.